Hello and welcome again to the channel where we are talking all things taboo. Is it appropriate to say that? Today's content will be talking about privacy management in African families, particularly in parent-child sex and sexuality communication. I'm very grateful to Dr. Sibulele Ngwana of the University of Johannesburg, Psychology Department precisely, because in March she extended an invitation for me to deliver this topic to the university's research series. So in presence with so many people, but I would like to thank the friends and the family members of the University of Johannesburg and particularly of Mongshu as well for having taken their time and supported me through that presentation. But thank you for the inspiration of this topic, Doctor. I'll now also appropriate it onto my YouTube channel because the audience here are very hungry for such content. You know, in this presentation, we spoke and will be talking about so many things, including why I study communication, taboo communication particularly, why parents think that talking sex is not appropriate, and all that. So let me not spoil it. Let me not tell you upfront. But if you are watching this right now, I would like you to pick up a pen and paper and write down this. What one thing, or even more than one thing, do you have in mind that you maybe look forward or did look forward to discussing with your parents about sex and sexuality, or with your adolescent child? What one thing or more than one thing do you look forward to discussing or did look forward to discuss? The second thing you can do as a favor and just note or even put it down in the comment section is something sexual about you that you wish to discuss with your parents or your children, you wish to discuss in your home environment. Again, you can put that down in the comment or just write down and digest it as this conversation unfolds, because it's very important that you note those things so as to understand the purpose of having sex talks, the purpose of understanding sexuality to the point where you can communicate easily about it. So this topic of privacy revolves around silence and secrecy in the communication of sex and sexuality within the family environment. Take your time, reflect on your environment, and as we go through this conversation, think of what you would do. Think of what you have not done, but you can. Think of what you wish you had done different and start doing that differently now. So let me tell you the reason for which I study sex communication, the purpose for which we should even communicate sex. The first thing, it's not because sex is not important or not because sex is simply important. It's because sex is very, very important. It is too important, it is too sacred, and it is too dangerous to not talk about it. That is why we talk about it. You get my point. And then the second reason is because of the infiltration of code words when people talk about sex. For instance, where I come from, where I grew up, and where I'm raising my children, when we want to mention the sexual organ, for instance, which I cannot use because internet might censor this video, but if we want to mention that, we call it thing. Instead of saying vulva, we say thing. Instead of saying penis, we say thing. So it is really misleading, but also confusing to children when they do not understand these things appropriately, yet we want them to communicate appropriately when they talk to us. I mean, it's not basically only about talking to us in things that they want to do sexually related, but think about describing this because they have a discomfort to us. And then also, We have to know that when there is a lot of silence about anything, but particularly sex and sexuality, children are left to create their own meaning of the things that they understand, of the things that we are not explaining to them. They create their own meanings of these things and they use it in the way that they see fit. So I'm not here to attack how you communicate sex. I'm not here to attack your culture's approach or your religion's approach to sex. I'm here to tell you that we need to find out the emotional and psychological cost of not talking about sex, of secrecy, of privacy, and then we deal about it safely in a way that does not destroy our values. As I move on, I want you to note that not talking is silence. The fear of talking is secrecy. But let me define the key terms in this topic today. Sex is penetrative intercourse. Sexuality is people's attraction towards another, someone's attraction towards another, emotional attraction. And then another definition is silence. I define silence as a tool that people use to avoid talking or to defy talking because they are embarrassed or simply because they want to hide their true feelings. Actually, silence is a metaphor for power, particularly in the home environment. When parents are silent or when children are silent, they are actually inferior. Anyone who is silent does not have power. That's basically what I'm saying. And then let's define secrecy. Secrecy is the intentional concealment of information. It could be from family or it could be from society, but also it's the intentional concealment from people who would have been impacted by the information if shared. To appropriate silence to this talk right now, I will say to you, it is culturally regulated to create boundaries around the way we talk, to create boundaries in the value system. While secrecy, we intentionally conceal private information because we want to protect our identities, our relationships, and the moral order. In this case, our sexual identities, But both of them, silence and secrecy, when they are prolonged, they actually can generate emotional strain. And this leads to distance in relationships. Do I make sense? Please tell me, write down in the comment section what silence and secrecy has cost you. Yes, what it has cost you. As you do that, I want to say silence is not the absence. Silence is protection. That's what parents say, right? African parents, they tell you that no, we are quiet because we are protecting you. We are not quiet because we want to be absent from the things that are happening in your life. But what exactly do they think? Let's come back to sex communication. How is the African parent's brain when it comes to sex? How do they think? The first point I want to raise is that they think that when they talk about sex with their children, they are encouraging the children to go have sex. They think that when they talk about sexuality, they are moving against the fact that there is only a man and a woman that was created. Basically, they don't want to talk or acknowledge deviant identities. They say if you're a good girl, you don't ask sex-related questions. And when boys are promiscuous, for instance, they say boys will be boys. They don't want to talk about it. But in reality, what these parents are doing is that they are not protecting us. They are not protecting the children when they don't talk to them. I want to ask you a question, parent. What if your silence around sex and sexuality is no longer protecting the same children that you are protecting or that you are claiming that your silence is protecting? What if I tell you today that silence is not protecting them? That silence is producing anxiety, it's producing confusion, it's producing rejection, it's actually even leading to bullying because their friends are there to watch them. And they know that they come from a home where there's no talking. But it leads to bitterness. These children become bitter against us for keeping quiet. It leads to confusion in the sense that they do not understand and truly apply what they have to apply sexually. And most importantly, it leads to confused identities. You cannot fully identify with what you don't know, can you? So let's talk sex, please, parents. Whew. I know you're standing there and telling me sex is a taboo topic, but let's find out. Is this truly a taboo topic? What is a taboo? I define taboo as something that does not exist. Yes, I'm joking. I define taboo as taboo is not something that does not exist. Taboo is something that exists so powerfully that we fear to talk about it. For instance, we fear sex so much that we think it's disrespectful to talk about it. For instance, we fear homosexuality and diverse sexuality so much that we think everybody is heterosexual. For instance, we think that when we don't talk about taboo things, we're culturally protecting who I don't know. Or we are exerting moral authority to show that, yeah, we are perfect, we are these good people, we are accepted by society. We fear many other things. And that is what makes a topic becomes taboo. But as you make it a taboo, silence is weighing on us. It's weighing on us. The first thing I want you to understand today is that silence is inherited. Our children inherit silence from us, from the way we talk. When your child asks you something, you say to that child, no, we don't talk about that here. You say to that child, no, what would people think if they know that you know about this? And what do the children do? They inherit that attitude. And how does that play out? It becomes trauma. Not their trauma, your trauma. Yes. Silence is trauma that you carry, that you never processed. It's abuse history that we leave unnamed. Our children don't have names for them. It's shame. It's shame. Yes, when we are silent, it means that topic becomes a shameful topic to talk about. And we think that we are protecting gender. No, we become so rigid that we fear to move out of the circle of what we think is gender. And what happens? There's emotional suppression. But when we start thinking that emotional suppression is strength, we are carrying the weight of silence. We are. And the fear in there gets mistaken for us guiding our children. We are not guiding them. We are not protecting them. We actually might be leaving them vulnerable by not talking to them. Yes. So let's look at the weight of silence. I said emotional from the topic, right? The emotional weight on our children. When we are silent on topics, our children are shameful to talk about that. They nurture fear around that topic. They live double lives because they don't want us to know what they know. They rely on peer for many things, and peer pressure infiltrates your home, how you raise your children. The secrecy leads to psychological strain because they start guarding boundaries. But it also leads to what they call FOMO, fear of missing out. And how about you, the parent? What is the psychological damage of silence on you? You fear of losing authority, right? The weight is your fear of losing authority. It's a fear of a collapse of moral standard or of losing your family identity, right? It is the fear of saying the wrong things in today's world where our children are seemingly more educated and more exposed than us. They know better than us on the topic of sex and sexuality. So we fear talking to them about this because we fear that we would lose the power, the grip that they have over us, or we have over them, right? So that is a weight. This is weighing on you. That fear is a weight on you, on itself. Anyway, before I move on to look at how culture and religion is infiltrating silence or how we keep privacy, I want to implore you to think of that one sentence about sex that you heard growing up. Just that one thing about sex that you heard growing up. And tell me in the comment section. Was it informative or was it warning based? Which one sticks in you? Which one sticks in you? Is it the informative one or is it the warning based one? I'll give you an example of myself. When my period started, my mom said to me, from this time, you can be pregnant. That was it. From this time, you can be pregnant. She didn't tell me that if I sleep with a guy, if I have sex with a guy, I can be pregnant. She didn't tell me nothing. She just said from this stage, you can be pregnant. I would take that, yes, it was informative in the sense that I knew that I'm in the stage where I can fall pregnant, but it was also warning based. They were warning me on something that I don't even know, because they didn't tell me what I would have to do to fall pregnant. So that is what I mean. Ask the question. Let's see. Okay. While you type in your question, I want to tell you, by this point, you understand that I research sex and sexuality. So I want to take out the religious and the cultural aspects that actually make us to be quiet as per the people that I interviewed, the participants of my study, the people that I interviewed. So I interviewed parents of adolescent children, and I interviewed young adults who spoke about their experiences when they were adolescents. An adolescent is somebody between the age of 10 and 19. So in my research, they said they are silent out of respect. And that the things that silence teaches them is that they should wait until they are married before they can talk or do sex and sexuality. They are silent because they respect their parents. Remember, my study is in the home environment. And then there's something called gender expectation. Girls are silent because for them, they need to maintain purity and caution. But for boys, silence is strength, the show of their manhood. That is why fathers in my research in South Africa are absent in sex talks. And then another thing is age and hierarchy. Elders can talk sex, children listen. And when children listen, they don't ask questions. Because if they ask questions, they are being disrespectful. How nice, eh? Come say that to my children at home. Come to my home and tell my children, if you ask questions, you're being disrespectful. But anyway, this study, my study, was guided by a theory called the communication privacy management theory, which actually clarifies to you who should own some information, who owns a child's sexual information. But it also tells us that parents do not only want to have ownership, they are claiming to be gatekeepers to these children's information. This theory mainly tells us it doesn't judge. And then it says, here is the ownership, but there are boundaries that have been created to that ownership. And these boundaries are thick depending on how much the owner of that information thinks the information belongs to them. As a result, people selectively tell some information to certain kind of people at certain times. But it also cautions us that we should be careful with the times that we disclose information to our children or parents. And then the third thing, remember, the first is the information, the second is the boundary. And the third thing that this theory looks at is a turbulence. It calls it turbulence, but I'm looking for a word that is in our families, conflict. It's the conflict that come about by the fact that this information exists and by the fact that there's a lot of secrecy or privacy around this information. And it says that conflict is usually caused by betrayal, people's feelings of betrayal, children feeling that the parents have betrayed them, but also parents sneaking into children's information and getting out what they want to see. So for instance, we search their phones, their diaries, their bedrooms, their own spaces, under their beds, everywhere, to see what they are keeping from us. So that information this theory guides us on how people should manage their information, which information belongs to someone, and how we should even access this information. And it was very helpful in my research because it actually made me come to realize that boundaries come about. And when boundaries are in information, they become walls. They create walls of communication, walls between mother and father, walls between father and children, and this is the cause of the heavy silence that we have in our homes. I say when we refuse to talk about sex, we do not remove ourselves from sexuality or sex talks, from the sex lives of our children. Actually, what we do is that we remove ourselves from the conversations that our children continue to have with their friends. Am I making sense here? What I'm saying is that if we don't talk sex with our children, we actually are just not becoming part of the people that they talk with, because they still talk. They still talk. That's what my research says. So, in order to look after our children, I'm saying we should stop being secret. We should start talking. We should stop being silent. We should start talking. Remember, I gave you the definition of silence and secrecy at the beginning. Again, what is my research saying? My research is guiding us on how to talk, how to do the talking, right? So it says we have to communicate safely. How do we communicate safely, you might ask? Again, you can pause now and share. If you are a child, an adolescent, or you're a parent, share in the comment section how you have been doing it safely, how you've been talking sex and sexuality in your family. I recommend from my research data that you do it gradually. Start young. Start when your children are young. When they are at the age where they are asking you question, Mommy, why do you have boobs? You explain to them. Mommy, why does something come down out here? You explain to them. At that stage, you are using age-appropriate language, but you are guiding your children according to their age. But when you wait to start at 18, where are you? Where are you? You will be lost because this child will definitely know better than you. So anyway, start gradually. Disclose to your children. Don't keep a lot of secret from them. I'm not saying you should go bare. You should be able to use your judgment. Negotiate their boundaries also with them. Don't put thick boundaries. Negotiate, meaning try and be flexible sometimes on certain things. Keep the communication respectful. Teach your children how to communicate respectful. Don't tell them that we don't use certain words. Tell them how to use those words safely, for instance. That's what I mean. And time your disclosure. My colleague asked me, how do you talk sex with a 10-year-old? And the simple response I'll give you is that you don't go out there and tell the child that in sex, you open your legs and a man gets in, if it's a girl. Or a girl opens their legs and a woman gets in if it's a boy. Whatever the situation. Sorry, I'm confused now with confused sexualities. Let me not just keep my communication gender segregative. You explain to them and you say to them, sex is something that happens between mature adults. For instance, married people. It is very sacred that at the age of 10, even if I tell you, you would not understand. But as you advance, we are going to be talking about aspects of sex that will cumulatively lead to you understanding what exactly sex is. That child would understand. So reposition sex talk in your family and make it to be protection, to be guardians, but also to be love. Don't just focus on protection. Make it to teach your children values. the values that the outside world does not teach them, the values that their teachers don't teach them in school, the values that their own friends do not teach them. Replace fear with guardians. Yes. And keep your identity or your family dignity intact as you talk. It does not take away anything if you're conscious. But on the other side, when you're silent, psychologically, it affects you and it affects your children. You people internalize a lot. And remember, when you internalize, before talking, you calculate. You do a lot of arithmetic because you want to keep safe. As a result, it creates anxiety. Anxiety about what if my children finds out that what I've told them is a lie? Or what if my parents found out that what I've told them is a lie? But it also creates shock when your children find out. For instance, they found out that you didn't marry a virgin, but all along you've been telling them to marry a virgin. It creates fear, but it also creates disappointment. These children lost trust in you. Then they become emotionally isolated. At the same time, emotionally isolating you, creating a lot of insecurities within your families, but also leading to the double identities that we talked about earlier, where at home they are quiet and respectful, but out there they want to display themselves. I'll give you an example of a child in my research, a girl, 19. She said to me she was a lesbian, right? But her parents didn't know. Her parents wanted this straight child, always talked about a girl who is in love with a boy. What did she do to skip that? She brought home her best friend, introduced to her mom, this is my best friend, and hung out with this girl everywhere, every time. And then she brought a boy and told the mom, or the parents, no, the mom in this case, anyway, let me stick to the research, told the mom, this is my boyfriend. But guess who she was having sex with? The girl. And the girl's parents on their own, they had been flexible, so they knew. The mom came over and said, oh, your daughter is my daughter's girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. And this woman who wasn't flexible said, no, my daughter is not a lesbian. My daughter cannot date a girl. So she denied the reality. So that is their daughter living what would be called a double identity. Yeah, double sexual identity. And also, when parents keep secret or silence, they force their children to live fragmented, to give them fragmented loyalty. The children are honest to them only because they would accept what the children are saying. Not honest because the children really are saying what they believe in or who they are. So be careful how silent you are, because this can really destroy silence can destroy your family identity. I want to be on point and read out to you some of the things in quote that my participants said to me. So let me get this. Okay, for instance, talking about fear and emotional suppression, this one said, you are silent because you feel scared to say anything because you don't know how they will react. So you just keep everything inside. They here refers to the parents. Another one referring to loneliness and lack of support says, silence means keeping quiet, and keeping quiet makes you feel alone, like you are dealing with these things all by yourself. And referring to emotional exhaustion, another one says, silence is tiring. It is tiring to always hide things at home, but talking feels more dangerous than staying silent. Dear parents, this is what your children are saying about your ability of keeping them quiet. And you ask me, what is the benefit of this topic to you? I would say, I want to say to you, please let's talk, and let's talk sensibly. Let's break silence responsibly. Let's center the talk around our family values. Yes, you can do that. You can talk about being gay or lesbian, but talk and center it on your family values. Let's use the communication management theory to protect how we talk. Remember what I said to you. This theory didn't come now. This theory didn't exist because there's a lot of privacy. No, it's just helping us to control the privacies and the boundaries around these privacies within our families. If you've benefited anything from this, please leave a comment, please share, and please subscribe to this video, because I'm bringing you more and more talks on sex and sexuality. Thank you.